We feel like Bell's not just
Wait, the microphone. The microphone. I choose mine. Yeah. No, I know, but we have a better place. No. I think we use these, right? Yeah. External mic, so we're on.
Yeah, that's fine.
We're fine. Okay. You hear me, Danny? Yeah, we're good. Okay, everybody say. Gracias Shakayach to Rav Aaron Khan, who opened the doors. I would have done it, but I didn't want to show off. And Kanira, he did. So, gracias Shakayach. You guys have no idea. The guys on TV have no idea what went on over here. But, as Hashem. Also, it is hot out there. It's hot out there, and I do appreciate that you all came, because I do know how hot it is. And Maisa, just to be mechazik the oilam and something, you do have to keep on the masks. Push it out. Forget everything else. But the thought of Chalila, that the koilel closing, is something I can't stifle. And Mamish, every time somebody calls my phone, I get nervous that he's going to tell me he's in Bidud, he's in this, he's that. And the only thing that, is somewhat is if I know that he had masks, and I know that probably that he didn't affect the rest of the koilel. So l'kol hapachas, I know it's difficult, and it's easier for me to talk, as you say, because I'm not wearing a mask. But I have this glass in front of me, and you don't realize that I also use Seamus and things, and I make sure it's around. This is like by Elisha, it says that he had a barrel over there in order to accept the nace, that there should be like the oil went in and it just got nisraba. So over here, I put a glass over here, and then the nace can come and makes it that you're all protected from me if Chalila. So the Maisa, but the rest of you, I don't know if you have the ability to do that, except for Aaron Khan, who showed us some great koiches today. But Al Kapanim, please keep on the mask. I know it's difficult, I know it's annoying, but it's the thought of Chalila closing the koilel because somebody affected somebody else is something that I can't be silent. I don't think anybody can be silent. Maisa, there's a Maisa this Shabbos, and this brings us into, I would say, one of the Ladaiti, one of the greatest kulas in Maisa Shabbos. One of the biggest kulas that there is in Maisa Shabbos. And not only is it the biggest kula in Maisa Shabbos, it opens us up to a tremendous sugya. And I think in years past, when I spoke about this topic, I was a bit more adel about it. Today, I'm not sure if I'm going to do that. We'll see what the sugya is and what the topic is. And it's the deity, it's one of the most negaya in all of Maisa Shabbos. Pashut, many have today. The case that occurred on Erev Shabbos, the Maisa that was that somebody, not Erev Shabbos, was on Shabbos already. There was one of these yeshivas that was in a cat. Of course, the Shaila came to me after Shabbos, not on Shabbos. They want to know what I would have thought about the Shaila. But one of these yeshivas was in some far off place, some far off nature valley somewhere. They rented out a campus, and on Erev Shabbos, they were busy trying to put together an Erev. When they realized on Erev Shabbos that they didn't have an Erev, these places, they all got there on Sunday, Monday, and then, who thinks of an Erev? And then Friday afternoon, the guy called me on Friday afternoon to ask me how to make an Erev and how to deal with the Erev. But there were other issues, chutz from the Erev Chetzeres. There were appearances that they had to close. Whoever was learning Erev and knows what I'm talking about, whoever doesn't also knows that there's some of the appearances are too big. So I told them how to make basically a it's very complicated. So I just told them make it Tzursa Pesach. It's not so hard to make it Tzursa Pesach. And that's what I told them. I basically told them how to make the Tzursa Pesach. And that's what they did. They made it Tzursa Pesach. On Shabbos, as they're walking home from shul, walking back from what they call the base medrash to walking to where they eat and whatever. So somebody realized that the lechi, the makeshift lechi or the makeshift Tzursa Pesach that they made on Erev Shabbos, they realized that it was fallen down. So one of the the very well-meaning Bachrim went over and he wedged it into the ground in a way where it wasn't going to fall down again the rest of Shabbos. So he went and he took this pole and he wedged it into the ground stark to make sure that this will not fall again. Without that, Tzurus Pesach, the makim was also to carry in that makim. Kifiyah was described to me, the pirza was too big, and the way it was described to me was without a Tzurus Pesach, it would have been also to carry in that area. Al Yedei the Tzurus Pesach, now he made it that they're able to carry in that area. So what's the halacha? He was over on a Maisa Shabbos. What Isser was he over on by taking this pole and stooping it into the ground? What Isser was he over on? The chayra, it's a shayla called boina. Chayra pashtus. In this case, it's called boina because it's a binyan. Pashtus, that's the pashtus. Is it nissa deraisa? And I would think so. The way it was described to me, it's a nissa deraisa. It has a tikin. It's not a kilkel. And he wedged it stark to make sure it doesn't fall out again. And he was over on a nissa deraisa boina. Is he shaygig? Is he mazid? So the Bachrim were, right afterward, the Bachrim were saying, they were all talking about it and whatever. And the Bachar said, what are you talking about? There's nothing wrong with what I did. There was already a hole there. So they asked him, first of all, it's not so, first it's Shaz of Muksa and Shaz of Tikkun. Okay, maybe B'Dirabanan if the hole was already there. But they were asking him, what do you mean the hole was there? He was sitting there and stooping and he was kicking it with dirt to make sure that it would be properly this, that, right? So the Bachar answered like this. The very, very intelligent Bachar, he answered, and what's better, that people should carry the whole entire Shabbos without an Erev? That was the answer of the Bachar. The Bachar, he wasn't the one that called, obviously, but that was the answer of the very intelligent Bachar. What's better, that the whole entire Shabbos, that the Elul should carry without an Erev? So another Bachar said, well, we'll tell everybody. No, that for sure you don't do. Everybody knows that when an Erev comes down, you don't tell people and whatever. That was the dialogue between Mo, Larry, and Curly. Okay, Motzei Shabbos, for those that don't know who that is, Zundalanchel and Herring. Motzei Shabbos, so they called me and they wanted to know, were they allowed to carry on Shabbos in that Erev? No, Maisa, first of all, they wanted to know, was he right that you're allowed to put it into the ground? So that you realize the Vada, that's a Nissa Gomer and it's a Nissa Deraisa. Certainly not allowed to put it into the ground, that's no Shaila. Okay, and it's a deraisa because the way it was described to me is that they did more than just a tikkun. The mamish properly wedged it into the ground, and that's zicher nisser boina mitzvah. When we learn boina bekarka, you'll remember this case, and this is a quintessential example of boina bekarka. Mamish put into the ground in something that's you can clear. Is it something that's going to be long lasting? The second they leave in a week and a half from now, it's going to be taken down. So you could clear. Mitzvah will learn Vaina and we'll clear. But Anoita, that what he did was an Issa Deraisa. He did something which has a tikkun, which has a value to it. So Chayr is over on Vaina Deraisa. Is he a shaygig? After that conversation, if a Rav had to have that, decide after that conversation, what would you call him? I don't even know. Is it Bahala? What is it? I'm not sure. What is it? I don't know if it's shaygig. It's mazid for a good reason. It's for a good reason. It's mazid, but for a good reason. Everything we do b'mazid is for a good reason. Right? It's a good reason. Sorry? There's what? I gave you the conversation the way I got it. The way I got the conversation was they said to him, what are you doing? So the first thing he answered was, what are you talking about? There was already a holder. They told him, what do you mean? Mamish, the exact conversation. What do you mean? He pushed, he stopped, he this, he that, he whatever. So he said, Tachlis, it's mamish boina. What are you talking about? He said, so what's better? That the whole entire Shabbos people should carry without an Erev? That was his answer. What's that in English? If you were in a court of law, what would you say to him? 30 years in the slammer, no? I mean, the Chayr doesn't sound very good. It sounds to me like it's Vaina Deraisa, and it sounds to me like it's amazing. It's definitely something. He's, I don't know, you want to call him Bahala? Sorry? Come again? Yeah, because he thought, I'm not sure, that's something very interesting that Rabbi DeFerdiger is pointing out. How do you dime this guy? He let's say it's true. We don't know if it's true, but let's say, we don't know if it's true. But let's say Taka, he tells you, I can't believe that's Deraisa. So then the most mazid that he is on a Derabanan. Right? First of all, mazid Derabanan, the Psak Allah of the Mishabur and Sivkat and Gimel is when you're mazid, when you're shaking on a Derabanan. So that is one of the most important reasons why, all of Hilchos Shabbos, you have to know what's Deraisa, you have to know Derabanan. What's the reason why you have to know Deraisa Derabanan? There's a few reasons. One is because when you have a chayli on Shabbos, if something's Deraisa, obviously the only time it makes is when it's Pekuch Nefesh or whatever. If something's Derabanan, we're a lot more liberal. If it's Deraisa, it becomes much more. It's one reason why you need to know Derabanan. What's another reason? Who knows another reason why you need to know Derabanan on Shabbos? What's Derabanan? You can't do it. What's the difference? 500 you burn, 600 you broil. But either way, you can't do it, right? So why do you need to know what's Derabanan on Shabbos? Oh, Amir La'akum is shvus to shvus, b'makim tzayirich, b'makim mitzvah, b'makim this, b'makim that. So you need to know which things are derabanan. This is the third reason why you need to know what's derabanan and deraisa on Shabbos. Because when something is deraisa, if you did it be'isr, so then it's a lot more aggressive. If something is done be'isr, so the ikar psak halacha is it's after until Motzei Shabbos. Even b'sheigig, we saw the ikar sheet is Rabbi Yehuda, that if you do something on Shabbos on a deraisa, even if it's sheigig, if you do the sheet is it's after until Motzei Shabbos. If it's derabanan, so then the halacha, that's l'chaya bar, that's Mishnah Berurah and Tzivka and Gimel. A derabanan that was done b'mezid. In this derabanan that was done b'mezid. So then taka, let's say the rope snapped of this erev. The rope snapped, and he b'mezid tied it with a knot, which is only derabanan, which we have to discuss, which knot's derabanan, it's Hashem. So then that would be mezid derabanan, would still be asur till Motzei Shabbos. It'd still be asur till Motzei Shabbos. That's a mezid derabanan. But if it's shoigeg, let's say he didn't know, he thought he's doing the biggest mitzvah in the world, he thought it was mutter, he's an aymer mutter, whatever the case is. So shoigeg derabanan, says the Mishnah Berurah, on a Motzei Shabbos is mutter gomer, not even b'makam tzarich. Just for a moment, mutter gomer. What? On Shabbos. That's one of the most important klalim that you're ever going to learn in Hilchos Shabbos. One of the most important klalim. All of Hilchos Shabbos. If someone was over on an Isser, derabanan, b'shoigeg on Shabbos, it is mutter gomer for him, for everyone, and there's no shiloh. So that's, so come back to our case. So here it wouldn't help us, Rabbi Defordiger, because here he was l'chayra amazing. The way that conversation played itself out, what's better, that they should, the whole Shabbos, the way you can imagine Bochum talking, what's better, the whole entire Shabbos, that they shouldn't have, that they should walk around without an Erev. Now, Gada, is it true that we don't tell people about the Erev going down? So Yishlodin in each case, Rabbi say, here, the entire yeshiva is in one campus. Entire yeshiva is in one campus. The whole reason we find in the Paiskim different kulas about not telling people is because we say mutter sheishayigim, and they're not going to know, and this and that. And here you have a yeshiva. A yeshiva has to be run al tyrus halacha, al tyrus hakodesh. And everyone's going to know about it. It's not like people are not going to know about it. Here they're in a yeshiva. All you have to do is come in and you have to clap and you say, "There's no erev," and gamarnu. And that's it. And who's going to carry? It's in a yeshiva. I mean, okay, you have to know which yeshiva, right? But assuming that it's a normal yeshiva and the bachrim are going to listen and whatever, so then that wouldn't have been, anyways, his logic, it was whatever, but anyways, it wouldn't work. So what is he? I'm noita, he's amazed. So now it's amazed, even the daitoi, that it was drabanan, God, it's deraisa. But even on his brains, that it was drabanan. So Rabbi Defordiger is saying, so he's a shoigei klape de deraisa. He's a shoigei klape de deraisa. So here we have, but l'daita, he's amazed on the Darabana. It comes out a very interesting idea. I was thinking this, Kala. Klape, just a moment. Klape, what he was thinking, so he was taka amazed on the Daraisa. Being amazed at Daraisa means it's also until Motzei Shabbos. If something's amazed on Daraisa, it's also until Motzei Shabbos. So then for sure we can't use it. If we're going to look at it, Klape, his aspect of shoigig, his shoigig on the Daraisa, then in Echanami, there would be what to talk about to use it by Motzei Shabbos. To use it, before Motzei Shabbos and to use it on Shabbos. So Salach L'Maisa, Achmein, it's Mamanashach, he's in big trouble, this guy, right? Because it's at least a Mezid on the Darabanan. Maybe this is called Mezid on the Daraisa. So therefore, on Shabbos, to use this item, the Erev, to use the Erev in this case, L'chayr is a big problem. So it's also to use this Erev the entire Shabbos. That was the case. So that's what they asked me. What they were asking me, they called me up with a different child, I must admit. They didn't have a Havamina, you're not allowed to use the Erev once it was made. The Bachrim, Rabbi said. They never have a meeting now that I use the Erev once it was made. They called me up to ask me, is it true what he said? First of all, are you allowed to do it? Second of all, assuming that you're not allowed to do it, so what would you have done in that case? Should you tell the whole Olam that the Erev is down? That was what they asked. Lamaisa, I have a one-track mind. I see, we have what to talk about on Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon. Motzei Shabbos, this Erev is Aser until Motzei Shabbos. Adkan is the story. Does everybody agree? What? So it doesn't matter what Rabbi Spire says. The hana is to be able to carry in a Carmelis, but that we're not dining on the hana, the teitzah. We're dining on the ma'isa. The ma'isa that was done is a problem. What? Okay, so if it would be bent, we could talk. Yeah, I'm saying in all these cases, no, Bamis, we could talk in all these cases. That's why I explicitly said that over here he's talking about where it was mamish taken, the pole was taken out of the dirt, and he mamish stopped and he pushed it in, I'm asking. It's what to talk about. It's what to talk about. That would possibly be a tikkun d'Rabbanan. I zikr a tikkun, but it would be a tikkun. You would have to don something else. You'd have to don maybe the erev is still kosher even when the lechi's on a slant.
I'm saying, so then that's the case. If you didn't do it.
Yeah, I'm saying, in this case, the case we're dealing with was the erev was down. I mean, this was the. You could done something else, which I didn't want to get involved in Hilchos Erevin over here. It could be one pole fell down. Now, it could be there was a lechi on the other side. What's a Turas of Pesach? Lechi mikan, v'kayir al gabeim, right? So it could be over here, for all you know, there was a lechi mikan, and that was enough. It's a little bit complicated. I can't go into all of Erevin now. Besides, every time I talk about Erevin, so then those guys have like websites against, no, you know what I'm talking about, where's David? Then all those chevra, they start putting up all these websites against me that I spoke against the Erev. So you know, why should I do that now? Still easier. Okay. Buzz? Wait, you understand what I'm saying, Rabbi Singer? You understand what I'm saying, though? You understand what I'm saying? Yeah? Buzz? Yeah. No, he didn't think what he was doing is right. He was thinking the ends justify the means. But in Yiddishkeit, they don't. Different religions, they do. But not over here. That's one of the reasons why those guys are so into making Erevin. It's the same stupidity. You understand? But I guess it was Bochum that started out like, hey, who knows? One day maybe this guy will work for the whole Erevad and everything. And now at least they have what to put on TV against me. Yeah, sorry? He did the Raisa. Yeah. Okay, but that's not so simple. It's not so. Here, that's the Nidin. I said that's the Nidin. That's what I thought more. Okay, that's the Nidin. But it could be we're knasing him. Klape, he's on that which he did. Klape the Deraisa, he is a shoygig. Rabbi the Fordiga is right about that. Okay, but Klape the Derabanan that he was clearly doing, then okay, I'm not sure. Elamai, okay. Let's say again, these are all good cheshbainis. If I was writing a tshuva, I would be nice if these cheshbainis. I'm asking for what you're saying. So you're saying, so let's call him a shoygig. Let's call him a shaygig on a deraisa. Listen, I'm not convinced. It's a little bit unfair that, you know, I don't know if this guy was thinking drabanans, deraisas, and whatever. He was thinking mutter gomer. And then he was really not thinking mutter gomer. He knew what he was doing was wrong. So this is not makasha. But in every single case where someone does a Ma'aseh Shabbos, we're going to have to go into the kishkes of the person and say, did you know that doing this is deraisa, drabanan? We don't find that so much. It's I don't know. What do you say, Rabbi Shwade? What do you say? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'll go upon him. But Rabbi say, let me down the Shiloh first. Sorry? Excuse me? That's Lefi Rabbi Yehuda. I'm saying, but we have to keep in mind we have Reb Meir. And it's a big tzorech. No, Rabbi say, Valtegevein that it would be a shoygig. If Taka, I could turn this fellow into a shoygig on a deraisa, Reb Meir, b'shas tzorech, I'm for sure going to be mekel. You know, we have over here, these guys are Bechlal, Nebuch, jail-bound and house-bound, and how much suffering we're hearing about them. And you're not going to let them even have an Erev. So that's already, you know, going to take away their whole Einik Shabbos. No, if that would be the case, I'd let them be Saimach. But over here, I'm chayshish that this is called Mazid. And therefore, you understand what I'm saying. That's why this case is worse. Now, I just want to tell you all one thing, which is something to think about. We become a bit too liberal when we discuss shoygeg, b'makim tzarech. Here for sure I'd be mekel if it would be a shoygeg on the rise. But just in general, I think most of us, we forget that, you know, we say, hey, listen, b'makim tzarech, you can be mekel when it's a shoygeg, even on the rise. Like I've been saying the whole last week. I mean, I'm the fault of this. I'm the one that made you believe that anytime you have a shoygeg, b'makim tzarech, you can be mekel if the person did a ma'aseh shoygig deraisa on Shabbos, so then b'makom tzarech mekel. Now we become very, very liberal in what called tzarech. I showed you last week even cholent is not called tzarech, and the oilam is shocked. The oilam is very shocked. I have a raya that you shouldn't be so liberal, and that because you should know when you read the Mishnah Berurah, he says shoygig is mutter b'makom tzarech. So I understand where the liberal attitude comes from. The person's going to say the guy did an issa deraisa b'shoygig, and the Mishnah Berurah says so b'makom tzarech we're mekel, and we don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda b'kai governor will be saying Reb Meir. Okay, so that's where the liberal attitude comes from. It came from me. It comes from the Mishnah Berurah. I just want to tell you that there's a very big reason that you know. Sometimes I told you the Mishnah Berurah you have to have Tayras Chesed, Cheshbin, Svara, Diak. You can't just read the Mishnah Berurah and say, you know, with a square brain and not know anything. In the Sefer, Mishnah Berurah has two Svarim. He actually has three Svarim here. He has one Sefer called Mishnah Berurah. He has another Sefer called What's the name of the sefer? Rabbi Lang, you remember from the days in Yeshiva, what was it called? Bir Lacha. Yeah, Bir Lacha. He has another sefer, what's it called? Shmir Salashin, right? You know, Shar Tzion. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyeh b'dvaro. So over there, he has a sefer called Bir Lacha. In the Bir Lacha, he says what I kept mentioning last week, which I'm sure by now the Olam saw. He brings over there Rabbeinu Yoina. Rabbeinu Yoina is in the Rashba in Tav Kuf Lamed Amud Beis. And Rabbeinu Yoina says something which we mentioned many times, that if you do Haitzah, if you carry something to Ma'aseh Shabbos, which is not our case. Our case is he fixed the actual poles. That's not what we're dining on. But let's say you bring something through Rishus Rabbim. Let's say it's a real Rishus Rabbim, not to get involved in that chat. Emes Rishus Rabbim, you bring something in Rishus Rabbim. So now the Mazid, not the Mazid. You bring something through Rishus Rabbim. Did we make a Ma'aseh Shabbos on that item? You brought a knife to do the bris milah. That's what he's talking about over there in Shabbos Kuflam Amud Beis. You bring a knife to do the bris milah. You bring hot water for a tea. Are you allowed to get hana from that drink? Are you allowed to? The Rabbeinu Yoina says yes. And that's the klal I mentioned last week. Rabbeinu Yoina says, because since lo yishtana chayfetz, since the item doesn't change, so you can't make a knas on an item. By a schnitzel, when you cook a schnitzel, I could say, this schnitzel, chazal knast. This thing used to be raw, now it's cooked. They said that thing is usher till Motzei Shabbos, till this, till that, whatever. Okay? Mashen came, if you brought a packet of tissues to shul on Shabbos, even b'mezid, Rabbeinu Yoina tells you, he says, what are they going to answer? The tissues, no malacha was done in the tissues. The tissues was a chatim to be over on a malacha, but nothing changed about the tissues. What did he say? No, ma'aser without the tissues, I wasn't over. Rabbeinu Yoina's shita is that Chazal gave a knas when something was created through a Ma'aseh Shabbos. But this was not created through a Ma'aseh Shabbos. A cooked chicken was created through a Ma'aseh Shabbos. That's Rabbeinu Yoina. I quoted it many times. I kept saying you have to be careful when you apply Rabbeinu Yoina. If you do accept Rabbeinu Yoina, if you don't accept Rabbeinu Yoina. The reason why I said that is because the Bir Lacha over here is very interesting. The Bir Lacha. Bir Lacha says like this. He's quoting Chayyadim in Klal Tes. And he says, if it wasn't the Shtana the Chayfetz, like Mivashal, that it didn't change. So he says, in B'shoigeg, listen to Rabbeinu Yoina, listen to Chayadim, excuse me. In B'shoigeg, mutter, if it's B'shoigeg, it's mutter, afilu loy, and even by Bayoin. If it's mazid, so then, I'm not so sure. Mutter, asra afilu la'cherim ad Motzei Shabbos miyad, umikol makam b'machmer b'kol isirei Torah k'may b'mivashal. What's going on? This Chayadim is very difficult to read, and the Bir Lacha is quoting it. He says, if we're dealing with shoygeg, it's very interesting. Shoygeg, I'm willing to be mekel. That's what he writes. He says, shoygeg mutter afilu b'chev. If it's mazid, so then I'm not sure. The mazid on a drabanan, he's willing to be mekel. It looks like from the Bir Lacha that first of all, lo nishtana chayfetz. On its own, you can't be mekel lo nishtana chayfetz. Not like Rabbeinu Yoina. You have to add it to something. So what do you add it to? So the Mishnah Berurah says, I'll add it to shoygig. Shoygig already is Reb Meir's, Mekel and Shoygig. So what do you see from over here? You can't just be liberal, shoygig mutter. Don't just think, when something happens, shoygig derice, it's mutter. You see here, Mishnah Berurah is saying, here I have shoygig and I have lo nishtana chayfetz. So then you brought those tissues to shul on Shabbos, which is the case we spoke about last week. Whether it's misasik, whether it's shoygig, then we could be Mekel. That's what we're going to see from it. Why? Because lo nishtana chayfetz plus shoygig, we're willing to be mekel. But let's say you have stam shoygig, or let's say you have stam nishtana chayfetz. Mishnah Berurah is not so liberal. I have to keep that in mind. So if you come back to our case over here, okay, I mean, this is a good example of if the fellow would be a shoygig that I would be mekel. Because it's a moira de ketzayach, right? An entire yeshiva that's cooped up as it is, and to tell them now they can't carry anything out on Shabbos, it's definitely a very big tzayach. So if the fellow would have been shoygig, so then I would have certainly been willing to be mekel and say that they could use it b'diavad. Shoygig on the deraisa would be willing to be mekel. But I'm just saying, you have to be careful before you go and apply that rule of what's called, when are we going to mekel shoygig b'makom tzarech? But al-kapanim tachlis, in this case over here, that was the case. And is that crystal clear before I go into it? Is there any other reason why? What other shayla could you ask? L'chayr, it's checkmate. This person's amazed. And I beside l'chayr, they shouldn't have used it the whole Shabbos. I guess it's a good thing that there was no bal halacha there because he would have told them it's aser. No, anybody? He created rishus. I see walls. If you walk through the area and you don't bang your head, you're not bikaris. Yeah. Why not? You want to say that it's not even a hana? Why is it not a hana? Without this, I can't carry. Is it removed? Is it really removed? I don't know. Let me explain to you what they want to say. They want to say, let's say you have, sometimes Nebuch, he has that, somebody was telling me a story about somebody who knows that Nebuch, there's two brothers in one room, one of them went off the derech. Okay, one of them went off the derech. So what happens? He comes in on Friday night and he turns on the light. Okay, so you can't get enough from that light. Okay, say that. I'm not interested in getting enough from that light, As a matter of fact, I want to go to sleep. So what happens? But you don't want to tell him, Nimrod, could you turn off the light? Because that's for sure you're not allowed to do. So what do? So you have to wait until Nimrod finishes doing his affairs, and then he turns off the light. He has to go to sleep too. And the Gemara says already, Shein al Rishayim is tired by the man. So hopefully soon he's going to get tired and he's going to turn off the light. But now you have a problem. Are you allowed to sleep in the room? I'm getting enough from him turning off the light. So it's pashet. That's not a Maisa Shabbos. No matter what, this has nothing to do with Rabbeinu Yoina. Rabbeinu Yoina told us that when I carry tissues to shul, there was no malacha that was done in the tissue. There was no creation in the tissues. So we can't answer the tissues. There's no creation in the tissues. There's no shinui in the tissues. So we don't answer the tissues. And that's debatable because the malacha was done in the tissues. You could hear, Chazal said, knas on the item that a malacha was done with. You could hear. Here, what do you want to knas? What do you want to knas? I'm not using the light. You want to knas what? My sleep? This is what's called in halacha a grama from the hana. That's clearly, just one moment, that's clearly not a direct hana. I saw one sefer that's mistopic about this. There's nothing to be mistopic about. Just one moment. We said it could be, yeah. Yeah, by mir la'akam it'll be the same thing. Let's say, the guy comes into the room. I'd be nervous if I'm lying down and the guy comes into the room to turn off a light by me. But let's say that's the case. All of a sudden, the guy comes into the room and he sees you're trying to sleep, and the guy turns off the light for you. Are you allowed to tell the guy chas v'chalila? But are you allowed to use the room? Are you allowed to sleep there? So Rabbi Khan says, we said in Amir La'akam, das ist nicht hanoye. That's not hano. Heder is not called hano. So they want to say maybe the same, like a first cousin of that svara. Over here, there was a wall that was built, an imaginary wall, the halachatika wall that they put in the staves or the stick into the ground. And now, al yidei this, you're able to carry there. Is that called an indirect hana? I don't know. That's what the wall does. I don't know. I don't know. I think that is bad to what the wall does. You should be arrested. That's exactly what the wall is doing, no? What is the purpose of this imaginary wall? What? It's not imaginary, right? He's saying, what do you mean? The wall is a mitzvah. I don't know. No, not a mitzvah. Here's not a mitzvah. You're not doing a mitzvah. And anyway, that's not so pashit because we're dealing with Isser Shtamshis over here. It's not so pashit, that klal that you just said. It's a very good question we have to talk about. The official sense, what happens if they bring you a lulav? Do we say mitzvahs lav lahenis nitnu? Or do we say over here the gedarim are not totally in hana? They're totally in shimush. Chazal said don't use item brought by bad guy, brought by b'mezid. I don't know. Again, if you have a raya to that, I'll accept it. But it doesn't sit with me so well. Befrat, Rabbeinu Yoina himself is not so pashit. So you're not going to be better than Rabbeinu Yoina. I don't think it's better than Rabbeinu Yoina. So Rabbi say, there's no other kasha? There's no other kasha? Buzz? I don't know why he's a pasha shaggy. He's amazing. He's amazing. You didn't think it was mutter. You heard the conversation. I don't know. So that anybody? Another chat? Nobody. What? They were moicha on him and made what? Okay, so what? It doesn't matter. It's still going to ask him. No, what do you say? Anybody? Well, so I'll tell you what I asked him. But this is a question which L'daiti Abai say. This is very important. You have to know this question. And you have to know when to ask this question. I asked him, what time did this happen? That's what I want to know. I want to know what time this happened. What did they tell us? Rabbi Isai? He told us when they were coming back from shul, they noticed it. Okay. Usually yeshivas daven a bit earlier, right? Usually they daven a bit earlier, especially when, So he told me, look, let's make the cheshbon. He said mincha was 40 minutes before shkia. He said 20 minutes after shkia, his borah, they were already started Ma'ariv. Ma'ariv went for about, he said the Rosh Hashiva wasn't davening there. That was what he said. Right? So he said the Ma'ariv went for about, maybe ulai, should I tell you what he said? 8 minutes. I said, with Vayichulu? You're right, 10. Very long Vayichulu. Al Kapanim. He said the Ma'ariv went for about 10 minutes, 30 minutes. Kids said they started walking and they could smell the food. So they walk faster when you smell the food. Shabura says that when you get an aliyah, you should walk fast, right? To show that that's what's important to you. So some people, food is important. So 35 minutes after Shkia, he told me max 40 minutes. Maximum 40 minutes. He said, but probably 35. 35 minutes after Shkia was when he did his dreadful crime of fixing the Eruv. That was the story. Okay. Well, stories in Eretz Yisrael, sure. Stories in, I probably shouldn't say where, but the stories in Eretz Yisrael, somewhere in the north. But it's still Eretz Yisrael. Yeah, somewhere in the north. Akapanim. So there he is in Eretz Yisrael doing this malacha. So let me tell you what it says in the Sefer Orcha Shabbos. In the Sefer Orcha Shabbos, I didn't know if I wrote down where. In the Sefer, in the 25th parak, in the 78th ha'ara, he brings down a bir halacha, a Mishnah Berurah. The bir halacha now I have to preface with one thing, and I mentioned this the other day. The Mishnah Berurah in Reish Samach Aleph Sivkot in Vav brings down that ben hashmashis there's a knas. If you do something ben hashmashis, there's a knas. Don't say, what do you mean there's a knas? Harei to suffix if it's us or not. So if there's a suffix, if it's us or not, there shouldn't be a knas, because we know when there's a suffix, if something is us, it's not so simple. The Torah says, no, it's a suffix, it's us, but it's a velt suffix, it's a suffix deraisa l'chumra. And everyone in the world is maskim that you must be machmir. There's no sheet in the world that says ben hashmashis you're allowed to do malacha. It's a suffix deraisa l'chumra. I mentioned this the other day. And if you do malacha during ben hashmashis, you have to bring in asham tali. Because it's 100% usher for you to do a malacha or drabanan anything during ben hashmashis. 100%. Maybe there's certain kulas, drabanans, lakim sayrech, whatever. But everyone agrees ben hashmashis is usher. Therefore, there's a knas. Okay, that's the Mishnah Berurah. No one argues on that lalacha. That's bar. So it's checkmate over here. Is not better than ben hashmashis. So come to gain, and Orcha Shabbos brings a sefer Mishnah Berurah, bir halacha in Siman Reish Samach Aleph in Dibra Maskal Ein Madlikin. Over there, the Mishnah Berurah says something which is very mistaber. Very mistaber thing. It says the Mishnah Berurah, says, look, let's say I have a time, which is not, we know the biggest machlekes in Gans Kol Torah Kula is Rabbi, the Tam, and the Goyim. You know, the machlekes of when is Ben Hashmashis. This is mamish. It's Negeya everywhere. Negeya Shabbos, Negeya Pesach, Negeya everywhere you go. That's the machlekes, Nida, everything you go. That's where it's Negeya. So come to gain. Mishnah Berurah, he says, I don't know, who knows how to paskin over here? Rabbi Tam, the Goyim tells you that when you hit Shkia, what's Shkia these days? 7:05 or something? I don't know, 7:10 or something like that. 7:10. So 7:10. According to the Goyim, that's Ben Hashmashis. According to Rabbi Tam is driving for another 58 and a half minutes. Okay, there's a shaila if it's 58 and a half minutes. Is he driving only for another 40 minutes? And it depends. You all know the rate. It depends on where the positioning and the latitude and longitude and all other types of interesting things. But you all know that certainly in the first 13 and a half minutes, the Goyim is not driving a car. And the third 13 and a half minutes, for sure, the Rabbeinu Tam is driving a car. Okay, what else afterward? What the numbers are? Well, maybe we'll talk about it in a moment. But there's a big machlekes. So the Mishnah Berurah says, listen, Herzachai, talk to Mishnah Berurah, if I have a situation of where it's nach nisht, it's not ben hashmashis for one of the shitas. And Motzei Shabbos, it could be one direction. Erev Shabbos, it's the other direction. So I'll talk about Erev Shabbos because that's our case. So I know according to the Goyim, it's not it's ben hashmashis. According to Rabbeinu Tam, and not only that, according to the Goyim, maybe it's vadei laila. There's 50 minutes minutes where it's almost vadei laila for the Goyim, and the Rabbeinu Tam is going to the mikvah, it's coming back from the mikvah with the car. Right? So then says the Mishnah Berurah, b'kahai gavna, there's no knas of a Maisa Shabbos. Why not? Says the Mishnah Berurah, it's like a klal de mistaber. And this is a klal that the Mishnah Berurah says in a few places. Mishnah Berurah by us says it in Zivkot in Beis. That's by us. I'll read it to you because it's open on the table. Mishnah Berurah says, whenever you have a machlekes safek plugse, whenever you have a machlekes apaiskim, if it's bishul or not, or in other malachas, don't answer b'di'evet. Where else does the Mishnah Berurah say? When you have a machlekes, what's the logic? The logic is, how could you say that we're going to give a Maisa Shabbos to this character when the Rashba is willing to do it? Why did I choose the Rashba? Because the Mishnah Berurah again brings this klal in our siman, in Sif Dalid, something we learned last month. We know there's a Veltz Machlekes. At what point is something called fully cooked? Meichel ben Drisai, or what we call fully cooked. I don't mean what point is it called fully cooked. I mean, at what point are you over on bishul? The shita of many Rishonim is that once you hit Meichel ben Drisai, whatever Meichel ben Drisai is, it's edible, whatever that is. I'm not going into that now. But whenever you get to there, so then going weiter is not an isser. It's mutter gomer. It's einig Shabbos. You get, let's say, 70% cooked for sure. You know, some places can say 50%, some places can say even 35%, whatever it is. But let's say you get 70% cooked. So comes again the Rashba, and the Rashba says, once you're 70% cooked, 50%, whatever it is, you're no longer over on bishul. We paskin lalacha not like that. Rambam, all the other shittas, we paskin not like that. And we paskin that in order to not be over on bishul, it has to be considered what we call fully cooked. Now, afterward, you know, you go from fully cooked to kishmak or whatever. That's not a problem with bishul. Is that crystal clear by side? Says the Bir Halacha. What happens if you go and you put on 50%, 75% fully not fully cooked food onto the fire, and now it goes from 50% to 100%. I'm not getting involved now, Chazara, Shia, that's a whole different truth, but you're doing it in a way where it's not Chazara, okay? Whatever the case is, you have a blech, okay? So you have a blech, what? Yeah, put the lid on or something, you know, you take off the cholent, and then you look at the cholent, and you say, oops, and then you put it down, b'mezid. Behala. And then you put it down, right? And then, you know, now you're feeling a little guilty. So he asked the Rav in the morning, I know somebody that he picked up the lid, my friend. Why don't you tell your friend to come and ask the shayla? No, he's embarrassed. So I'm asking for it. So I know somebody picked off the lid and then he put the lid on Shabbos. So you ask him, was it 70%, 60% cooked? Yes. Ooh, how'd you know so fast? Okay, but okay. So then you could eat the cholent. That's the psak of the Heilige Chafetz Chaim. And then that's the psak of the Magen Avraham, the Paiskim. Why? Because Abayisai, the Rashba would put the lid back on. We paskin, you don't put the lid back on. And we paskin that, you know, we would be very upset with you if you did this. You probably have to bring even Noshim tell you, I don't know. Al Kapanim, we would never allow you to go and put this lid on. But what do you want? The Rashba was willing to put on this lid. If the Rashba was willing to put on this lid, so we're going to make a knas and say the cholent is aser? Is the cloud clear, Abayisai? This is the cloud. The Mishabur brings it again in Simon Chav Gimel. I think it was in Sivkat and Lamed Beis. Over there, he's talking about tefillas kalim. And there's a whole list, are you allowed, whole shayla, are you allowed to toivel kalim on Shabbos or not? You're allowed to, yeah, no. So he says, let's say you did it. So he says, nearly, no, wrong one. Here, im over v'taval. If you're over and you toivel the kli, maybe you could use the kli. You know why? Because yesh matirin afilu lechatchila. Harei there poiskim that allow you to be toivel kli afilu lechatchila. So what are you going to say? I mean, this Grace Rav metalanga board, he would take the thing to the mikveh himself and he would toivel it. So you're better than him. So Chazal didn't make a knas b'kai governor. You hear the logic, right? You can certainly hear the logic. Okay, there's a shayla to read this Mishnah. This Mishnah is mashma that it has to be that there's somebody out there that would do it lechatchila. Not just b'di'evid. We'll have to talk about this where it could be negaya. But let's say our case, right? The Rashba would put a lid on this cholent at 70. He would say, "Oh, it's a good thing that you know it's not yet time for the meal. I still have time to get it from 70%, from 60% to 100%." And the the Rambam would throw him off a cliff. So what do we do, lalacha? Lalacha, we say, don't do it. But al kapanim, we're not going to make a ma'aser Shabbos if you do it even b'mezid. Abi, even b'mezid. I'm not talking about b'shaykik over here. I'm talking even b'mezid. Okay? It's a basic. So now comes again Rebbe, Mishnah Berurah, and he says something which is so mistaber. He says, Oy bazoi, no, if you have something that according to Rabbeinu Tam, it's not yet Shabbos. It's not yet Shabbos according to Rabbeinu Tam. It's not yet Ben Hashmashis according to Rabbeinu Tam. So Oy bazoi, if you do malach at a time that according to Rabbeinu Tam, it's not yet Shabbos, and we're doing vice versa, but that's the case we're dealing with. So in such a scenario, we're never going to make a ma'aser Shabbos. How could you make a ma'aser Shabbos? According to the Goyin, we're already holding by throwing you off a cliff. We're after 13 and a half minutes. We're not you know, in the Ben Hashmashas, we're throwing you off the cliff. It's true, but we're not going to ask for the food b'di'evid because the Goyin would ask because the Goyin in the Goyin's world there was no other tzad. Okay, but we are after the Goyin and we're between these great mountains of Rabbeinu Tam and the Goyin. We don't know. We're machmir for shteitzach. Okay, but if you want to know if he did it, so then it's mutter. I say b'say no. Let's talk about our case for a minute. Our case. Was? So comes again to Orchas Shabbos, and he says like this. He says, That bir halacha is not a gay in Eretz Yisrael. That bir halacha is not a gay in Eretz Yisrael. Why not? Why is it? He says, look, in Eretz Yisrael, we're makabel that we do like the goyim. It's not like in Chutz La'aretz, and we hold like the goyim shita. And mamish, we hold be'esach chomer that after shkia to do malachas. Mamish says, look, in Europe, and I'm holding the Heim Gevein Taka, people did malacha after shkia. I don't mean they did malacha after shkia. They did malacha after shkia rishayna, and they held that the ikka problem is the tzveita shkia. So they did malacha. It was already 3 minutes after shkia, 10 minutes after shkia. They still did malacha. So, and a lot of people didn't do malacha because it was a suffix, okay? But in Eretz Yisrael, shtaz you don't find people that do malacha after shkia. At least before hesia, never. So the Mela, now you want to know, is in Eretz Yisrael, is it even a suffix? There's no tzad sel suffix in the ganze Welt. And I'll add, and not only that, you're still like Tarti Desasri. On Motzei Shabbos, what time? I keep Rabbi times. I don't know what time do I live. What's the earliest time? Like 35? What is it? 30 minutes? Really? Even in the summertime? No, I think on the calendar it's like 35. What? 35, so it's about 35. So he says, you mamish, you ganta stira. You on Motzei Shabbos at 7:45, you're smoking a cigarette. You're already smoking a cigarette at 7:45. So the night before at 7:45, so what? And you went and let's say he put this stave into the ground. Baruch, that's the time if you're doing the math. He went and he put this stick into the ground at 7:45. Okay, so you're gonna say, Rabbi, on Motzei, you tarti desasri. How do you live with yourself, you hypocrite? You on 7:45, you're gonna be smoking a cigarette on Motzei Shabbos, and now you want to say, oh, I did this over here. You hear this, Maisa? He wants to go put the stick into the ground and say, b'diavad, I'll be able to be saimech. Why, Rabbeinu Tam? You're a stira, you're a tarti desasri, and the Orcha Shabbos says, no way. No way. He says it's a tarti desasri. No way. And therefore, it's like Gavaldic logic, no? Therefore, if you go and put the stick into the ground on Motzei Shabbos, on Friday night at 7:45, at a time that according to the Goyin is already Aser, then you're out and you can't use it the rest of Shabbos. And therefore, in this case over here, we would have told them that this Erev was Aser to use the whole entire Shabbos. Sorry? Oh. So now let's backtrack a little bit. Okay, but that's clear. No, that's clear what he says. Right? And if you'd ask him this question, so then he would tell you they can't use the Erev. That's it. Assuming it's Mazid, but it's Mazid. What do you mean? It's a suffix plugsa. Rabbeinu Tam doesn't exist. That's what he says. Now, Lamaisa, before we continue, the way it's written over there, it's very difficult. Let's go Mikala that cover. The way it's written over there, it's extremely difficult because he says that, already once he hits Shkia, Ben Hashmashis is he hits Shkia and it's Aser. Anything from 7:12, let's say 7:13. Okay, I don't know what was Shkia, I think 7:12. So let's say 7:13, you put the stick into the ground. According to him, at 7:13, if you put the stick into the ground, then already on the spot, you're out. That's it. So that Rabbi say, that's for sure a tais. Why is that a tais? Because Rabbi say, nobody's a tarti desasri to that extent. In other words, there's a place where we're going to see if the svar of tarti desasri exists, but let's try to figure out where the tarti desasri is. What's the earliest anybody does malacha deraisa, let's say, on Motzei Shabbos? Who could tell me? I don't know what it is. I know that we say Kriya Shema from already 20 minutes in Yerushalayim, you say Kriya Shema from 20 minutes, but that's not a raya because you're normal from Jew, you say Kriya Shema Lamita also, so you're going to wind up saying Kriya Shema again anyways, which is really what Rashi in Bracha says. Ayin and Yerushalmi in Bracha says the same thing. So that much, first of all, maybe taka 20 minutes after is already Genuk Shayin. And second of all, you're going to wind up saying it again anyways. 90% you're going to wind up saying Kriya Shema again. If you're a normal person, you wind up saying it again anyways, unless you forget. But don't say Vait, we're not going to be Chash. Okay. So right away, Klape Kriya Shema, we do the rices. I don't know if that's right. What's the earliest somebody will do Malach on a Motzei Shabbos? Anybody know? What's the earliest? 30, 35, I thought, no? Or 30, I don't know the number. I think it's 35 grand. I think the calendar, no? I don't think anybody does anything before the calendar, right? Certainly, normal people just look at the calendar and then they do it, right? That's the norm. As a Mela, let's just approach it before we even start. Where's the Tarti Desasri? I mean, you ask this Jew, Rabbi, why is it that you're not smoking? You very much want the cigarette. So why are you not smoking a cigarette now? Why aren't you smoking a cigarette? It's already 20 minutes afterward. Why aren't you smoking a cigarette? And not only that, he davens Ma'ariv, so they should be done on the spot right after Ma'ariv, that he can, vinoyam, ma'is koineneu, right? So, but he will never smoke that cigarette, Ich mean, sometimes the guy's taking, no, he's a little bit, he's a little bit, but we both agree 30. So where's the Tarti Desasri start? The Goyim was smoking the cigarette 13 and a half minutes afterward, or by side, no games. The Goyim, not cigarette, a cigar, right? What are you talking, 13 and a half minutes already, the Goyim had a cigar? What are you talking? Cubans, 13 and a half minutes afterward, the Goyim. Okay, maybe 18 minutes, because, it's a shayla in the mill. Okay, maybe 20 minutes, whatever it is, right? But certainly from till 35, the Goyim had no problem smoking a cigarette. No problem. Okay, we don't do that. Nobody should do that, right? But 35, the Vilna Goyim was certainly 32 minutes, the Goyim was for sure. So why are you such a machmir? The teretz is because you also are not so convinced about the Vilna Goyim. You're not so convinced. You're also a little bit scared of Rabbeinu Tam. And there's different mehalchim. I don't want to go into it now. It's something that we spoke about in the past many, many times in this room. Well, not in this room, but in this asifa. We spoke many times that there's different cheshbonis how to figure out Rabbeinu Tam. And some say that Rabbeinu Tam would agree if it's pitch black and whatever, and even Rabbeinu Tam would agree. So where's the hypocrisy? The hypocrisy starts, again, until 35 minutes, Elamai, but there has to be a ben hashmashis for Rabbeinu Tam, right? That's the confusing part. So I would say that until, I say this with a heavy heart, until 25 minutes afterward, you're not a hypocrite, for sure not. In other words, until 25 minutes afterward, you all agree that you would never do anything. And then from 25 to 35, that's ben hashmashis. Maybe, for that person who's, does everyone understand that last cheshbon I'm making? In other words, at 35, why are you willing to have a cigarette? Because you're saying, Rabbeinu Tam, this is Seisek L'Chavim. Okay, so where was Ben Hashmashit for Rabbeinu Tam? Ich weiß nicht. The last 7 minutes, from 28 minutes to 35, something like that. So basically, again, the numbers aren't exact. I'm just trying to bring out my point. But until 28 minutes, you're not a hypocrite, right? Until 28 minutes, the Goyim would hold, if you do malacha now, you chayiv misa. Okay, and the Rabbeinu Tam would hold it's not yet ben hashmashis. So the whole time of the Orchos Shabbos is that you can't be a tarti desasri. We've accepted the Goyin 100%, but we didn't accept the Goyin 100%. There's nobody here accepted the Goyin 100%, because if you accepted the Goyin 100% at 18 minutes, 20 minutes, something, you would already be smoking a cigarette. So therefore, that is bevadai a tois. That means until 25 minutes after Shkia, if you did something, you did an aveira. Don't get me wrong, right? And if this stick was put in until 25 minutes, and it wasn't. So that's why it doesn't help us in this case. But if this stick was put in until 25 minutes after Shkia, it's no shayla in the world that you'd be able to use the hanof from this Erev. That's no shayla. The shayla is, what about our case? It was put in at 35 minutes. Okay, these bachrim, they smoke at 35 minutes afterward, which means they have to have a ben hashmashis, which means that for the last 6-7 minutes, it was ben hashmashis. That means bein according to the goyim, bein according to Rabbeinu Tam. So then this would have been an iser, l'chayra. As I beside, that's already checkmate. Now, that's Shlav Aleph, and that's in words of the Orchos Shabbos. Shlav Beis is that what the Orchos Shabbos says is quite tamua. To say that in Eretz Yisrael it was niskabel the goyim to such an extent that Rabbeinu Tam doesn't exist, is so quite difficult. It's so quite difficult. I find it so difficult. I find it very disturbing and troubling also. I mean, the names of the Rishonim that we're used to, the Rabbeinu Tam, the Ramban, the Rosh, the Ritva, the Ran, the Shulchan Aruch in Reish Samach Aleph and Siv Beis, the Shulchan Aruch, the Darkei Moshe. Who wrote the Darkei Moshe? Rama and Sif Aleph over there, Reish Samach Aleph. The Mogen Avram. Did anybody here not hear of the Mogen Avram? If you didn't hear the Mogen Avram, you're out. You don't exist. If you didn't hear the Mogen Avram, that's it. You go back to Yeshiva. That's it. Mogen Avram, Siman Shin Lamed Aleph, and Siv Kadem Beis. The Chassam Sofer in the 80th Tshuva, he writes, by us, it is muchlat. What's his lashon? Muchlat. We toifis behechlit like Rabbeinu Tam. We're toifis behechlit like Rabbeinu Tam. Now, I'm not saying that you should be makel like Rabbeinu Tam, but to machavek Rabbeinu Tam, it's not negeya. Ramosha Dalet Samach Beis. He says no one has a right to be makel against Rabbeinu Tam even. Nobody has a right. Okay, he goes with his cheshbonis. That Rabbeinu Tam is in New York 50 minutes after. He says, you don't have a right. How could you? He comes with his cheshbon. He says, how could you come and say, I know the answer. The Goyin is right. Rabbeinu Tam is wrong. He says, how could you do that against the Shulchan Aruch, against the Magen Avraham? He has another tshuva. In Yeridea, Rabbi says a tshuva in Daled Yud Zayin Chavav. He says, give me an example of great Gedolim in the last 200 years that were not Mekel like the Goyin. That weren't Mekel like the, you know his example is? The Goyin. That's his example. His example is the Goyin. The Goyin Elaine didn't noyig like the Goyin in Vilna. That's what he writes over there. So how's it even possible for a Bardas to say such a thing? If all these Rishayim, Paiskim, Achrayim, including the Goyin, never did behechleit like the Goyin, behechleit like the Goyin, nobody ever did. So then to say that Rabbeinu Tam is not a suffix, how's it even? How could you say such a thing? Rabbi Khan says, what's the greatest example of a machlekes which we paskin without a shadow of a doubt? That's the machlekes of Michael ben Drusai. Without a shadow of a doubt, there's nobody that's a hachra psak without a shaila, that you are not allowed to put a cholent, which is 50% cooked, and to put back on the lid. It's muchra 100% hachra psak without a shadow of a doubt. And that's the example. You hear this, Maisa? That's the example of where we're still makel on a Maisa Shabbos because the Rashba would do it. So if I say, how could it be? Even if you'll come along and say the words, you'll say the Goyin is right. Rabbeinu Tam is, I can't say those words. Rabbeinu Tam is the other side, right? Even if you'll come and say those words, you'll say the Goyin is right and Rabbeinu Tam is the other side. Even if you'll say those words, so what? And by the Rashba is also incorrect, la locha. La locha, we're machriya 100. The afal pi came when we're coming to be kaveya Maisa Shabbos. So we don't look at what's right and what's wrong. We look at, is there a shita out there that would do it? Rabbeinu Tam would put the Erev in himself. Rabbeinu Tam would say, Rabbi, say quick. We have only a few more minutes until we still have to get to the mikvah and everything, right? So what do you think? For Shteitzach, Rabbeinu Tam himself would put it into the ground. I say to say, how's it possible to say such a thing? Not shaykh in the Welt to say such a thing. Not shaykh in the Welt. Huh? What's the hypocrite? What? Wait, you hypocrite. What's you hypocrite? You hypocrite. Would you ever in a million years take food which is 70% and cook it on Shabbos? Never in a million years. Sorry? Excuse me? Levanti? Right. Why is it not? I don't understand. The Rashba, he gives shear in this fellow. He gets up, he tells people, guy gives shear. He gets up, a hypocrite, he gets up, this guy gets up, he tells Rabbi Isai, the cholent is 50% cooked, and you know when something's 50% cooked, right? If you put it back, even if it's 93% cooked, he tells people when the potatoes are a bit hard, if you put on the lid, we throw you off a cliff. If you're still not dead, we take out a boulder, we throw the boulder on you. If not, we get all the little cheder yinglach that throw stones at you. He gets up, he gives shirim about this. He's a hypocrite, Shein Kamayu. Who says hypocrite's a taina? Don't be a hypocrite. But who says hypocrite has anything to do with Maisa Shabbos? Who says? I don't know. Us? Let it be. But they were knowing what? They did 18 minutes? They did actually 18 minutes? They smoked cigarettes at 18 minutes? They mamish smoke cigarettes at 18 minutes? Okay, so you know what? So then those guys, there would be a shayla of hypocrisy, and I don't care. I don't care who says hypocrisy is a taina. I don't even care. Even if they're the biggest hypocrites in the world, who cares? Saif, is it borrower that 180 paiskim Rishayim and Achrayim all would have done this lichatchila? Yes. As I say, I don't see a tzad in the Welt, no tzad in the Welt, that what these bachrim did is asa b'di'evet. It's not sad. I don't even see it sad. At what point would it be us to be the Evid? No. So then there's a very big shaila. I'll admit there's one big shaila because what exactly is Rabbeinu Tam? That's a Welt's World War. But you should know when you read the Shulchan Aruch, who knows where the Sefer Shulchan Aruch was written? Where is Shulchan Aruch written? Tzfas. Where's Tzfas? Where's Tzfas? That's harder. Where's Tzfas? The Middle East. What? Where's the middle? Thank you. It was right near where the Erev was. Thank you, Fish. It was right near where the Erev was. The Rabbeinu Tam sheet of 72 minutes, you know who brings it? Rabbi Yosef Kaira. Who knows who Rabbi Yosef Kaira is? He wrote the Sefer Shulchan Aruch. And that day he writes, Rabbeinu Tam Shita, until 58 and a half minutes after Shkia, you're allowed to do malacha. Don't do it, Rabbi Isaac. Man, can't come to the Kollel on Sunday if you do it, right? But 58 and a half minutes after Shkia, yeah, you, all the Chassidim, the whole Chevra over here, you know I'm talking to over here, yeah? But 58, yeah, you. 58 and a half minutes after Shkia, until then, he holds until 8 o'clock, Zichar no Shailach. Man, that's 48 and a half minutes, right? Zichar no Shailach. I'm not saying to do this, chas v'shalom, but the asa b'di'evet, it's leitachin to say such a thing. It's leitachin. Look at we didn't do anything today. What? Come again? Say it. You absolutely can't. I agree. You can't. But if you did it b'di'evet, it doesn't make a ma'aser Shabbos. This has nothing to do with hypocrisy. It's in grace of bluff, Rabbi Isai. Because when you hear hypocrisy, it bothers the person. When you hear something that's hypocrisy, so right away it feels very, Jews are very, hopefully, people that are fine and don't stand for hypocrisy and things like that, etc. So it bothers us. I agree. If you would do it lichatchila, who is a hypocrite? And I wouldn't make a shidduch with the fellow, okay? But we're not dealing with somebody who did something lichatchila. We're dealing now with the aftermath of what he did. So are we going to ask b'di'evet the action? Who cares that he's a hypocrite? What does it have to do with it? First of all, what does it have to do with hypocrisy? What? No, let's say he did it b'mezid. No, but Rabbi say, on Shabbos he also does things b'mezid. On Shabbos he does things b'mezid also. And we still wouldn't answer it, like the example of the cholent, which is 70% cooked. Excuse me, what? No, definitely not. He can carry in the air, no problem. For sure. On Shabbos, Rabbi say, it's mutter gomer to carry on Shabbos. I don't see it. No, Rabbi say, I don't even see it sad. The guys on TV, do you even see it sad? Right? They're frozen from the kedusha of this vart. That's what happened. It's so bored to them that the mamish frozen. Okay, I don't know. We didn't do anything. Give me 1 more minute. What happened over here today? What? Because we have